People always ask me why I started my own shop so young. Truth is, I never liked being told what to do, not by bosses, not by teachers, not by anyone. Fixing bikes gave me peace. No one barking orders, no one breathing down my neck. Just me, the grease, and the sound of something broken coming back to life. My name's Ryan. I'm 23 years old, and I run a small motorcycle repair shop in a little town called Elmore, Indiana. It's not much, just a metal garage on the edge of Main Street, but I built it from the ground up. That place is my church. I met Tessa in the middle of July. Hot as hell that day. She pulled up in a busted old Ford that kept stalling out every time she slowed down. I was under a Yamaha when I heard her knock on the open bay door. "Hey, you work on trucks too, or just bikes?" she asked, brushing sweaty bangs off her forehead. I slid out, wiped my hands, and smiled. "I work on anything with an engine." She smiled back, not flirtatious, just tired. "Good. This thing's dying on me." I fixed her truck that afternoon. She hung around while I worked, sipping on a warm bottle of water, asking me questions about what I was doing. Turned out she was studying to be a vet. Worked part-time at the local shelter, trying to save enough to get through school without drowning in loans. "I'm living on ramen and peanut butter," she said, half laughing. "So I'm hoping this repair won't break me." I didn't charge her. Told her it was a discount for students who save dogs. She tried to argue, but I waved her off. From then on, she started dropping by more often. First with her truck, then to ask about bike engines for a project. Eventually, she'd come by just to talk. We'd sit on overturned milk crates in the shade, drinking cold sodas from my beat-up mini fridge. I liked her from the beginning, not in the cheesy love-at-first-sight way, but in the quiet, solid way where someone shows you who they are, and you just get it. Tessa was smart, stubborn, funny in a dry way. She didn't care about looks or labels. She worked hard. She didn't make excuses. And she was broke. Like, eating day-old shelter donuts for lunch broke. So I started helping, but never in a way that made her feel small. I'd slip a 20 into her glove box, pick up her lunch tab before she noticed. I paid for one of her textbooks and told her it was a promo deal from the publisher. When she needed tuition money to stay enrolled, I wired it to her anonymously. She cried when she thought it was a scholarship. We weren't dating yet, not officially. But every time I gave, it felt like I was investing in something more, something solid. I believed in her. I believed we were building something worth betting everything on. A year later, we got married at the county courthouse. No frills. Just a few friends, her in a borrowed dress, me in a clean shirt and jeans. After we signed the papers, we got burgers and ate them on the tailgate of her truck. I looked at her then, smiling, cheeks still flushed from the ceremony, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is the start of something real. I thought love meant giving someone everything and trusting they wouldn't run with it. That was the kind of man I wanted to be. And at the time, it felt like the kind of man she wanted too. Tessa started vet school 3 weeks after the wedding. We didn't have a honeymoon. She said she couldn't afford the time, and I said I didn't care. We were married, that was the point, not fancy pictures on a beach somewhere. The first few weeks, I barely noticed the change. She was tired, sure, but still herself. We'd eat together late at night, her textbook spread out on the kitchen table while I talked about the custom chopper I was building in the shop. She'd nod, listen, sometimes fall asleep in her chair with a highlighter still in her hand. But as the months went on, she started fading. Not in a dramatic way, just little by little. Less talking, less laughing. Fewer hugs. Less everything. It was like living with a ghost who made coffee and left her laundry on the couch. I didn't blame her at first. Vet school's no joke. Her classes were stacked with labs, clinics, night shifts. I figured she was just exhausted. That once she found her rhythm, she'd bounce back. So I picked up the slack. Worked longer hours. Took on side jobs. Started offering custom paint work just to make some extra cash. The bills weren't massive, but school wasn't cheap. She needed special equipment for surgery classes, some of it costing more than I made in a week. I bought her a set of orthopedic surgical tools when she mentioned them offhand. Had them engraved with her initials. She barely looked up when I gave them to her. "Thanks," she said, distracted, flipping through flashcards. That was sweet. It stung, but I let it go. Told myself she was tired. Told myself we were in a phase. She still wore her ring. Still kissed me goodbye in the morning. But it was like watching someone slowly sink underwater, too deep to reach. I tried to keep things normal. I talked about future plans, maybe having a kid in a few years, maybe opening a second shop closer to the highway, maybe taking a real vacation once she graduated. But every time I brought it up, she'd smile politely and say something vague. "Let's just get through school first," she'd say. Or worse, "We'll see." I started eating dinner alone most nights. Cold leftovers and late-night motorcycle forums. I told myself this was temporary. That love meant holding on, even when things got quiet. But as the months stretched into a year, I started to feel like a background character in my own marriage. I'd come home covered in grease, drop my boots at the door, and see her sitting on the couch, laptop open, eyes tired, but never really seeing me. And still, I kept giving. I kept waiting. Because I believed in us. I believed in her. I just didn't know she'd already stopped believing in me. Tessa graduated on a warm afternoon in May. I wore a new button-down shirt and sat in the back row of the auditorium, grinning like an idiot. When her name was called, I stood up and clapped louder than anyone. People turned to look, but I didn't care. That was my wife up there, my girl, and I was proud as hell. She didn't see me at first, but later, when she found me outside holding a bouquet of sunflowers, she smiled and hugged me like everything was fine. Like the last year hadn't been so quiet, so cold. I told myself we made it. That all the distance, all the stress, all the late nights, it was finally over. That night, I grilled steaks at the house and opened a bottle of cheap champagne. She was quiet, but I figured she was just tired. Her internship at a local animal clinic started in a few days, and I assumed her mind was already racing. After dinner, I started cleaning up while she disappeared into the bedroom. A few minutes later, she came back out holding a white envelope. I looked up, wiping my hands. What's that? She didn't say anything at first. Just handed it to me. I opened it slowly, not even thinking about what it could be. Then I saw the first line. Petition for dissolution of marriage. My hands froze. What is this? I asked, not angry yet. Just confused. My voice came out smaller than I expected. She crossed her arms and looked at me with this strange calm. It's divorce paperwork. I blinked. Is this a joke? No, she said simply. I sat down on the edge of the couch, envelope still open in my hands. Tessa, what the hell are you talking about? She didn't flinch. I've changed. We're not on the same track anymore. That's all she said. No anger. No apology. Just that flat, final line. I tried to speak. Tried to ask what I did wrong. If there was someone else. If she was unhappy. But every word died in my throat because the look on her face told me everything. She was already gone. Had been for a while. I signed the papers 3 days later. I didn't cry. Didn't yell. I just packed a small bag and moved into the office space at the back of my shop for a while. Slept on a cot next to a shelf of brake fluid and carburetors. When I met with a lawyer, I explained the situation, the money I'd given her, the tuition, the living expenses, the tools, the groceries, everything. He listened, nodded, and then said the words that gutted me all over again. There's no written agreement. No promissory note. So legally, you've got no claim to that money. I left his office with a folder of nothing. She walked away with a new degree, no debt, and a clean conscience. She even took the engraved tools. People say you should never keep score in love. But that's only true if you're both playing the same game. Turns out, I was the only one who thought we were on a team. The first few weeks after I moved out of the house, I barely spoke to anyone. I didn't return texts. Didn't answer calls. Slept in the back room of the shop, eating instant ramen and gas station burritos like I was 19 again. I'd wake up before sunrise, unlock the garage, and throw myself into whatever job was waiting. Brake lines, carburetor rebuilds, chain swaps, didn't matter. I worked until my hands went numb, until I couldn't think about anything but torque specs and socket sizes. The cot in the back started to feel like home. I didn't cry. Not once. But I did stare at the ceiling most nights, trying to figure out when exactly she stopped loving me. Was it during school? Was it earlier? Had she ever meant it in the first place? The silence around me got so loud, it hurt. A few people tried to reach out, my buddy Nate, some of the old regulars. Even my cousin Emily dropped by with a bag of homemade chili and a nervous smile. You okay? She asked, standing in the open doorway with her arms crossed. I nodded. Yeah, but I wasn't. I didn't want pity. I didn't want advice. I wanted to forget that I'd once believed so hard in someone who walked out like I was a phase. For a long time, I told myself marriage was sacred, that it meant sacrifice, loyalty, long hauls. But now I saw it for what it could really be, a gamble. A paper promise that someone could tear up when it stopped feeling good. So I made a new rule for myself. Never again. No marriage. No vows. No shared bank accounts. No legally binding hope. Love could still happen, sure, but only on terms I could live with. I kept things casual for a couple years. Met a few women who wanted different things than I did. I told them the truth from the start. I was done with the idea of forever. Done with chasing someone who needed fixing. Then I met Lila. She came into the shop with her brother's busted Ducati and a scowl on her face. Practical jeans, dusty boots, and a laugh that caught me off guard. She didn't flirt. Didn't linger. Just asked for a quote. Handed me a list of what her brother already tried. And said, don't BS me. I actually ride. I liked her right away. We started slow. Lunches that didn't feel like dates. Texts that didn't expect replies. She never pushed. Never hinted. Never asked why I flinched a little when she got too close. One night, we sat in folding chairs behind the shop, sharing a six-pack and watching heat lightning dance over the fields. I don't do fairy tales, I said, half expecting her to get up and leave. She took a sip and nodded. Me neither. We didn't make any big declarations. No anniversaries, no candlelit dinners. Just steady time, honest words, and space when we needed it. She never asked about Tessa. I never brought it up. Some nights, we'd fall asleep side by side. Other nights, she'd head home with a nod and a quiet "see you tomorrow." It wasn't romance like the movies, but it was real. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I didn't feel broken anymore. I wasn't looking for a savior, and neither was she. It had been almost 10 years since I signed those divorce papers. 10 years since I watched Tessa walk out of my life like I was a stepping stone she'd outgrown. I didn't think about her much anymore. Not in a bitter way. More like an old scar that doesn't hurt unless you press down hard. I had a business that ran smooth, a quiet routine, and Lila, who never asked for anything I couldn't give. Then one night, I was scrolling through emails on the couch when a notification popped up on my phone. Hey, how have you been? No name. Just a message. But I didn't need to guess. Tessa. For a second, I just stared at it. The nerve. The timing. 10 years of silence. And she comes back with a 5-word text like we'd parted on good terms? I didn't answer right away. Later that week, I replied with one word. Fine. That opened the floodgates. She messaged again the next day. Said she'd been thinking about me lately. Said she remembered our garage dinners, the late-night drives, the sunflowers I brought to her graduation. Tried to make it sound sweet, nostalgic. I kept my replies short. Polite, but cold. I didn't ask her where she was living or what she was doing. She offered it anyway. Small clinic in a suburb outside St. Louis. Recently divorced again, no kids. She talked like we were old friends catching up. Slipped in compliments. Little landmines dressed as flattery. You were always the steady one. I never forgot how much you supported me back then. I know you probably never remarried. Maybe part of you was waiting for me. That's when I felt it. That old familiar itch. Not longing. Not pain. Just a quiet reminder of why I stopped believing in promises. It was the same voice she used when she asked me for tuition money. The same self-centered lens, like I existed in a glass case waiting to be picked up again when she got bored or lonely. She wasn't reaching out because she missed me. She was reaching out because she thought I might still be orbiting her like a planet around the sun. And she was dead wrong. So I finally replied. You assumed wrong. No punctuation. No follow-up. She didn't message again that night. Not the next day, either. And I didn't care. Because the man she left behind? He might have waited. But the man she just found again? He wasn't hers anymore. A couple months after that last message, I ran into Nate, an old friend who still lived on the same side of the state where Tessa had landed. We were catching up over coffee when he mentioned he'd seen her at a charity event for local animal shelters. Didn't she end up marrying some big-shot realtor? He asked, stirring cream into his cup. I thought she landed on her feet. I shrugged. Beats me. He gave me a look. You don't check up on her? Not my job anymore, I said. But later that night, curiosity got the best of me. I opened my laptop and searched her name, quietly, alone, like I was poking an old bruise. What I found didn't surprise me. Just confirmed what I already knew. After our divorce, Tessa had done what she always wanted, moved up. She got with a guy who had money, flash, status. The kind of man who showed up in a tailored suit with a white smile and a business card that said luxury homes. They looked good in photos. Her Facebook page was filled with snapshots of wine tastings, dinner parties, expensive handbags, and inspirational quotes about chasing dreams. Then the posts stopped coming so often. When they picked back up, it was a different man in the pictures. Younger, leaner, tattoos and yoga mats instead of cufflinks and whiskey. This one, apparently, taught hot yoga and ran a mindfulness podcast. By then, the comments on her posts had changed. Less, you two are perfect, and more thinking of you, and hope you're okay. I didn't dig too deep, but I saw enough to get the picture. Turns out, the flashy ones didn't stick around. The charming ones cheated, lied, bailed. And the last guy, the yoga guru? He drained her savings and ghosted her after 6 months, leaving behind nothing but an expired lease and a pile of unpaid bills. Word from mutual friends was she'd gone through 3 relationships in 5 years, each one with more status than substance. I didn't feel satisfaction. Not really. There was no triumph in watching someone implode. No joy in seeing her chased dreams turn to smoke. Just confirmation. She hadn't left me because I lacked ambition. She left because I was too steady, too grounded, too much like the man she'd need later, after she'd burned through all her fantasies. I didn't message her, didn't reach out, didn't screenshot anything. I just closed the laptop, turned out the light, and walked back to bed where Lila was already asleep, curled up with her hand resting on the empty side of the mattress I was heading toward. The past had already played its part, and it was finally quiet. It started again not long after that. Like on an old Instagram photo of mine. One from 5 years ago, where I was rebuilding a Harley with the caption, "Fresh Start." Then a comment on a picture of the shop's new paint job. "Looks amazing. You've always had a gift." And then another message, casual but carefully worded. "I was driving through Elmore the other day and thought of you. Hope life's been kind." I showed it to Lila while we were eating dinner at a diner off Highway 12. She looked at it, chewed a fry, and said, "She fishing?" I shrugged. "Probably. You gonna bite?" I smiled. "Not even nibbling." Still, I answered her. Just enough to keep her wondering. Life's been steady. Hope the drive was peaceful. From there, it was like clockwork. Every few days, another ping. Nostalgic little nuggets. "Remember that night we got stuck in the rain outside that diner in Terre Haute? I still wear that old IU hoodie when it's cold. Never found one that fit like that." Then came the line I expected, the one she thought would land soft, but hit like a loaded brick. "I don't know why, but I always felt like you were the one person who really knew me." That was the moment I saw it clearly. This wasn't about regret. It wasn't even about missing me. It was about her needing to believe I'd been sitting in some suspended orbit, still turning quietly around the idea of her. I didn't lie. I never led her on. But I didn't shut the door either. Not right away. I let her misread the silence. Let her imagine things that weren't there. She wanted warmth, so I gave her polite distance. She wanted closure, so I gave her confusion. Lila knew. She didn't ask questions, didn't throw fits. That's not how we worked. But I caught her watching me sometimes when my phone buzzed. One night, after Tessa sent something about how I hate the idea of retiring alone, I set my phone down and said, "I think it's time." Lila didn't even look up from her book. Yeah. I'll put coffee on," she said. For the next hour, I sat at the kitchen table drafting a message. Not bitter, not angry, just honest. I didn't want to ghost her. That wasn't the kind of man I was. But I also wasn't going to let her rewrite the past to fit some new version of herself that wanted me back when it was safe. I read it over 3 times. Then I hit send. No heart emoji. No soft exit. No opening for a reply. Just a mirror. One that showed her the space I used to occupy and how cleanly I'd stepped out of it. The message I sent wasn't cruel, but it didn't spare her either. I told her the truth. That I didn't mourn our marriage. I mourned the years I spent believing I was building something that mattered. That her leaving wasn't what broke me, but how easy she made it look. How she treated our history like a chapter she could skim past once it stopped being exciting. And then I ended with this. You didn't walk out on a man. You walked out on a life you didn't think was shiny enough. But you don't get to come back now that the polish has worn off your plan B. I expected silence. Instead, she responded within 10 minutes. "Well, you're really going to talk to me like that after everything? After all the support I gave you while I was in school?" I didn't answer. So she kept going. "You're just trying to hurt me. You're bitter. You've always been so self-righteous, like you're the only one who ever sacrificed anything. Then, I shouldn't have messaged you. You clearly haven't grown." It went from nostalgia to guilt-tripping, then straight into rage. Like clockwork. She called twice that night. I didn't pick up. The voicemails started sounding more and more desperate. The next morning, Lila shook her head and handed me her phone. "Tessa messaged me," she said. "Called me a placeholder. Said I should be careful, that you always had unfinished business." I felt something cold move through my chest. Not fear. Not anger. Just a hard final snap. "She messaged you?" I asked. 3 times. Blocked her after the first. But I figured you should know. That afternoon, Tessa tagged me in a photo on Facebook, an old picture of us sitting on the hood of my truck from years ago, with the caption, "Some things never stop feeling like home." I hadn't spoken to her in a decade, but suddenly she was everywhere. Liking comments from mutual friends. Subtly trying to stitch herself back into the edges of my world. I called my lawyer. I'd used him years ago for a zoning dispute with the shop. This time, I needed something different. We sent her a formal cease and desist letter by certified mail and email. The tone was simple, firm, and legally airtight. No more contact. No more photos. No more veiled messages to my partner. Within 2 days, it was signed for. Within 4, everything stopped. No more notifications. No more name in bold letters at the top of my screen. No more reminders of a version of me that used to beg for scraps of attention. It didn't feel like a win. It felt like a lock turning in a door I didn't know was still open. People think closure is about conversations. About sitting across from someone and getting answers. But real closure is a choice. A boundary. A line you don't let someone cross just because they were part of your story once. When I walked out of the lawyer's office, the air felt different. Quieter. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was free. And I wasn't going to let her, or anyone else, tell my story for me ever again. A year later, on a late summer evening, I climbed up to the roof of the workshop with 2 cold beers and a pack of peanut butter crackers. Lila was already up there, legs stretched out on an old woven blanket, watching the sky turn that soft orange pink that only happens over Indiana cornfields. She took the beer without a word, cracked it open, and gave me a look that said more than any thank you ever could. Below us, the garage was humming soft clinks of metal, a radio playing something bluesy, and the buzz of my guys finishing up a custom rebuild on a 71 Triumph. 10 years ago, I used to dream of running a shop like this. Now I owned it outright. I sat beside Lila and leaned back on my elbows. I was following a set of power lines that stretched across the horizon like the edges of a map I'd finally learned how to read. We didn't talk for a while. We didn't need to. It's strange how quiet peace is. No fireworks. No dramatic turning point. Just the quiet comfort of knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be, sitting beside someone who doesn't need fixing and doesn't want to fix you either. I thought about Tessa once, just briefly. Not with anger, just curiosity. She'd sent one last email months back, some passive-aggressive thing about how cold I had become. I deleted it without reading past the first line. That door wasn't just closed, it was walled off, bricked up, buried. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't love her either. She was just a chapter I'd lived through. When I no longer had to reread, Lila nudged me with her foot. You thinking too loud again? I smiled. Just reflecting. On what? Everything I had to lose, I said, to get here. She sipped her beer, watching a hawk glide above the grain silos. Worth it. I didn't hesitate. Every damn bit of it. We stayed up there until the stars came out. Until the lights from the shop turned off, and the only sound left was the chirp of crickets and the steady breathing of a town that never needed much from me. Just that I keep showing up. I used to see myself as the guy who got left. The one who gave too much, loved too hard, got burned too bad. Now, I was just a man with good tools, rough hands, and a life built from the wreckage someone else walked away from. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was standing in the ruins. I felt like I was standing on solid ground. Home.